The Zalthar Prime, a towering figure adorned in ceremonial battle armor, stood before the Galactic Council with a smirk curling his reptilian lips. We have heard the tales of the Deathworlders, of their so-called indomitable spirit. And yet, we remain unimpressed. Show us your warriors, humans, or accept your inferiority. The words hung in the air, a challenge echoing across the chamber. Humanity's ambassador, a woman of unshakable composure, leaned forward with a faint smile. Are you sure you want to see what our warriors are made of, General Zalthar? Some truths are better left undiscovered. The general hissed, his scales rippling in amusement. We do not fear the unknown, Ambassador. Bring forth your finest. Let us see if these Deathworlders live up to the legend, or if they are merely myths wrapped in bravado. For centuries, the Zalthar Dominion had been the uncontested military power of the galaxy. Their warriors, bred for combat and trained from the moment they could walk, were renowned for their precision and strength. No species had ever dared challenge them openly, and their dominance went unchallenged, until humanity joined the Galactic Council. Humans were an anomaly. A species born on a death world, a term reserved for planets so hostile that survival was considered improbable, let alone the emergence of intelligent life. Earth, with its unpredictable weather, apex predators, and violent geological activity, had forged humans into creatures of extraordinary adaptability. Still, to the Zalthar, they were just another primitive race with stories blown out of proportion. The council chamber buzzed with tension as the challenge was accepted. You'll have your demonstration, the human ambassador declared. Our recruits are in the middle of basic training on Earth. You're welcome to observe. The Zalthar delegation exchanged glances, their confidence unshaken. Watching recruits train? It would be little more than a demonstration of Earth's inferiority. 2 days later, the Zalthar delegation arrived at a remote human military installation in the deserts of North America. The landscape was harsh and unforgiving, with jagged mountains framing the horizon and temperatures fluctuating wildly between blistering heat and bone-chilling cold. To the humans, it was just another training ground. A sleek Zalthar transport landed with a low hum, its polished exterior gleaming under the sun. The delegation disembarked, their imposing forms drawing stares from the human soldiers who had gathered to greet them. At the forefront of the welcoming party stood Drill Sergeant Harlan Brooks, a barrel-chested man with a voice that could shatter steel. You must be the Zalthar delegation, Brooks said, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Welcome to Earth. Hope you packed extra courage, because things are about to get intense. The Zalthar leader, General Strack, sneered. Your posturing is unnecessary, human. We are here to observe, not partake in your primitive rituals. Brooks chuckled darkly. Oh, this ain't posturing, lizard boy. This is just the warm-up. Without waiting for a reply, Brooks barked orders at the recruits. All right, maggots. Formation. We've got some special guests today, so let's show 'em what we're made of. The recruits, a mix of men and women in various states of exhaustion, snapped to attention. Their uniforms were soaked with sweat, and dirt streaked their faces, but their eyes burned with determination. The Zalthar delegation watched as the recruits were marched into what appeared to be an active war zone. Explosions erupted in the distance, and live ammunition whizzed through the air. The aliens flinched as a soldier narrowly dodged a collapsing obstacle, only to climb to his feet and press forward with a laugh. What are they doing? One of the Zalthar warriors muttered. Brooks overheard and grinned. This is just the obstacle course. Stick around, things are about to get interesting. As the delegation looked on in growing disbelief, a recruit leapt through a ring of fire, only to be tackled by another who screamed, ambush. The Zalthar leader's confident smirk faltered for the first time. This was no ordinary training, it was chaos incarnate. And it was only the beginning. The first explosion shook the observation deck, sending vibrations through the Zalthar warrior's transport ship. General Strack gripped the edge of the railing, his sharp eyes narrowing as another detonation sent a plume of smoke into the air. Below them, chaos reigned, and to his growing unease, the humans reveled in it. The Zalthar delegation had come prepared for what they believed would be a rudimentary demonstration. They expected drills, formations, and the monotony of recruit training. Instead, they were witnessing a battlefield simulation that blurred the line between preparation and outright insanity. The recruits darted across the obstacle course, navigating a gauntlet of hazards designed to break even the most disciplined soldiers. Walls with jagged edges, electrified trenches, and collapsing platforms were just the beginning. Above them, drones fired stun rounds indiscriminately, forcing the recruits to stay low or risk being knocked out. "This isn't training," one of the Zalthar warriors muttered, his claws clicking nervously against the railing. "This is slaughter." General Strack silenced him with a sharp glance, but couldn't deny the unease creeping into his chest. The humans weren't just surviving, they were thriving. Each time a recruit fell, another pulled them to their feet. Injuries that would sideline a Zalthar warrior were brushed off with grim determination or, disturbingly, laughter. Drill Sergeant Brooks, standing near the observation platform, shouted into his megaphone. "Move it, recruits! The enemy won't wait for you to catch your breath." The Zalthar delegation flinched at the sheer volume of his voice, but the humans responded with an immediate burst of speed, throwing themselves over walls and into trenches as if their lives depended on it. One recruit slipped while climbing a jagged cliff face and landed hard, rolling into the dirt. Blood trickled from a gash on her arm, and one of the Zalthar warriors hissed in disapproval. "That one's finished. No warrior can fight with an injury like that." Before anyone could respond, another recruit skidded to a stop and hauled the injured soldier to her feet. "Come on, Anna," he shouted, slinging her arm over his shoulder. "We're not done yet." "I'm fine." Anna snapped, pushing him off. She tore a strip from her sleeve, tied it around her arm to staunch the bleeding, and continued climbing. General Strack's eyes narrowed. Why do they not pull her from the exercise? She's clearly unfit to continue. Brooks turned, his grin sharp. "Unfit? That's not how we work. You see, General, out here, you don't stop just because it hurts. You stop when the mission's done. And if you can't keep going, your squad carries you. That's what makes humans dangerous, we don't leave anyone behind." As the exercise escalated, the Zalthar warriors found themselves overwhelmed by the raw intensity of human training. One recruit sprinted through a gauntlet of fire and explosions, emerging with singed hair and a triumphant grin. Another crawled under barbed wire as drones fired stun rounds inches from her head. "This is barbaric," one of the Zalthar murmured. "No civilized species would put their own kind through this." "Barbaric?" Brooks barked, having overheard. "This is basic training. Stick around, you'll see barbaric when we get to advanced tactics." The simulation ended with a deafening explosion that sent recruits diving for cover. As the dust settled, a drill sergeant approached the observation deck. "Ready for the death run, sir?" he asked Brooks. Brooks turned to the Zalthar delegation with a wicked grin. "Hope you're enjoying the show. The real fun starts now." The moment the words "death run" left Drill Sergeant Brooks's lips, a heavy silence descended on the observation deck. For the first time since arriving on Earth, the Zalthar warriors were unsure if they wanted to see what came next. Unfortunately for them, retreat wasn't an option. The recruits stood in formation, their faces grim but determined. The bruises, cuts, and burns from the obstacle course had done little to dim their resolve. In fact, many of them seemed energized, as if the chaos of the previous exercise had only stoked their fire. General Strack leaned closer to the edge of the observation deck, his scaled brow furrowing. "What is this death run you speak of?" Brooks smirked. "Think of it as a final exam, only with more explosions and a hell of a lot more pain." He turned back to the recruits and barked into his megaphone, "Listen up, maggots. This is where we separate the strong from the weak. You want to be soldiers? You'd better earn it." The Zalthar warriors exchanged uneasy glances. A death run? The very name suggested recklessness, but humans didn't seem to share the same sense of self-preservation as other species. The recruits were divided into squads and given a simple mission: traverse a simulated battlefield, retrieve a high-value package, and return to base without losing a single team member. Simple in concept, impossible in execution, or so the Zalthar thought. The course stretched across a desolate expanse riddled with traps, live fire zones, and towering structures rigged to collapse. As the first squad began their run, the Zalther delegation watched with growing horror. The squad sprinted across open ground, ducking and weaving as automated turrets opened fire. One recruit was struck by a stun round and crumpled to the ground. Instead of leaving him, the squad leader shouted, "Get him up." Two others dragged their injured teammate into cover, their movements seamless and coordinated. General Strack growled, "This is madness. They're wasting time and risking their objective for a single soldier." "Damn right they are," Brooks said, folding his arms. "We don't leave anyone behind. That's rule number one." The squad pressed forward, navigating through a maze of collapsing walls and electrified fences. One recruit climbed a precarious rope bridge while carrying a teammate on his back. Another team member used herself as a human shield to block incoming fire while her comrades disarmed a trap. The Zalther warriors, renowned for their strict hierarchy and efficient tactics, couldn't fathom the humans' approach. To them, individual sacrifice for the good of the mission was logical. But these humans seemed to value something more than logic. "They're wasting energy," one Zalther warrior muttered. "They'll never make it at this rate." As if on cue, the squad reached the halfway point of the course and retrieved the package. But their return was even more perilous. The simulated enemy fire intensified, forcing the recruits to rely on sheer grit and teamwork to survive. At one point, an explosion sent a recruit tumbling into a ravine. Without hesitation, the others formed a human chain to pull him out, all while under fire. By the time the squad crossed the finish line, battered but victorious, the Zalther warriors were speechless. The humans had not only completed the run, they had done so without losing a single member. Brooks turned to the Zalther delegation, his grin as sharp as a blade. "That was Squad 1. We've got 6 more teams to go. Care to join the next run? It's always more fun when you're in the thick of it." General Strack's scales rippled uneasily, his confidence starting to crack. "You expect us to endure this insanity?" Brooks chuckled. "Oh, I wouldn't expect you to endure it. I'd expect you to survive." "Barely." "You can't be serious," General Strack growled, his claws gripping the railing of the observation deck. Below, another squad was charging headlong into a firestorm of chaos, their shouts of determination rising above the deafening roar of explosions. "This is no training, it's a death sentence." Drill Sergeant Brooks, leaning casually against the deck's edge, smirked. "You wanted to see how Deathworlders prepare for war, didn't you? Well, this is it." The Zalther delegation had prided themselves on being fearless. As warriors bred for combat, they had seen their share of bloodshed and destruction. But nothing could have prepared them for the sheer insanity of human training. Another squad was halfway through the death run, sprinting through a simulated urban battlefield. Smoke billowed from collapsing buildings, and gunfire rained down from drones patrolling overhead. The recruits moved with a sense of urgency, covering one another as they advanced. One recruit was pinned down by suppressing fire, his position perilously close to an exploding fuel tank. "Go! I'll hold them off," he shouted, tossing his squadmates a smoke grenade. To the Zalther warriors, the scene was suicidal. But instead of retreating, the squad leader barked back, "Not a chance. Jenkins, flank left. We'll cover you." Jenkins nodded, darting through the smoke and taking down the enemy turret with a well-placed grenade. The pinned recruit scrambled to safety, and the squad regrouped, pressing forward without hesitation. General Strack's tail lashed against the deck. "This is illogical. No warrior should risk their life for another when the mission is at stake." Brooks raised an eyebrow. "That's where you don't get it, General. Humans don't fight alone. We fight for each other. That's how we win." The Zalther warriors exchanged uneasy glances. Their species valued efficiency and individual strength above all else. Sacrificing oneself for a teammate was a concept they couldn't comprehend. As another squad entered the field, a recruit stumbled on an electrified grid, writhing in pain. 2 teammates rushed back to pull him free, despite the risk to themselves. "They're wasting time," one Zalther warrior muttered, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Every delay jeopardizes their objective." "And yet," Brooks countered, "they still get the job done. Watch." The squad pushed through the final stretch of the course, battered but unbroken. Their movements were no longer those of raw recruits, but of a unit forged in the crucible of adversity. As they crossed the finish line, cheering despite their injuries, the Zalther delegation remained silent. For the first time, General Strack felt an emotion unfamiliar to him, doubt. Brooks turned to the delegation, his grin now devoid of mockery. "That's 2 squads down, 5 to go. But I've got an idea, why don't you join the next one? It's the best way to understand what makes us tick." Strack's scales rippled uneasily. "You cannot be serious." "Oh, I'm dead serious, General," Brooks said, his eyes gleaming. "Let's see what Zalther warriors are really made of." The moment the Zalther delegation stepped onto the training field, the air seemed to shift. General Strack felt his heart pound in his chest, a sensation he hadn't experienced in decades. For a species bred for war, fear was an alien concept. Yet, as he stood among the human recruits, watching them grin and slap each other on the back in anticipation, he couldn't ignore the gnawing unease crawling up his spine. "Welcome to the death run, gentlemen," Drill Sergeant Brooks announced, his voice dripping with amusement. "You wanted to see how we do things? Now you get to feel it. Don't worry, we'll take it easy on you." For about 5 seconds. The Zalther warriors bristled at his tone, their pride overriding their hesitation. General Strack stepped forward, his posture rigid. "We accept your challenge, human. We will demonstrate what true warriors are capable of." Brooks chuckled darkly. "Oh, I'm counting on it. Recruits, pair up with your new alien friends. They're gonna need all the help they can get." The recruits moved quickly, pairing off with the Zalther warriors. Strack found himself face-to-face with a young human recruit named Carter, whose wiry frame belied the confidence in his sharp eyes. "You ready for this, sir?" Carter asked, his tone casual. "I am always ready," Strack replied, though the words felt hollow. The whistle blew, and chaos erupted. The first obstacle was a field of electrified tripwires, with drones firing stun rounds from above. The humans dove into action, sliding under the wires and calling out instructions to their partners. Strack hesitated for a fraction of a second before following Carter's lead. The human moved with uncanny agility, vaulting over a low barrier and dragging Strack with him. A stun round sizzled past, close enough to singe the general's scales. "Move faster!" Carter shouted, his tone a mix of urgency and encouragement. "Stay low and keep your head on a swivel." Strack gritted his teeth, his pride burning hotter than the firestorm around him. He had never taken orders from anyone, least of all a Deathworlder. Yet, as he stumbled through the chaos, he realized the human's advice had likely just saved his life. The next section was even more harrowing. A simulated minefield stretched before them, with collapsing walls and explosive traps triggered by missteps. Strack watched in disbelief as the humans pressed forward, their movements coordinated and deliberate. Carter paused to pull another recruit free from a collapsing structure, even as Strack urged him to continue. "We're wasting time," the general growled. Carter shot him a sharp look. "We don't leave anyone behind. That's how we win. Now help me, or get out of the way." The word stung more than any weapon. Reluctantly, Strack stepped in, using his considerable strength to lift the debris. For the first time in his life, he wasn't fighting for himself, but for someone else. By the time they reached the final stretch, Strack's body ached in ways he hadn't thought possible. Yet, he was beginning to understand what set humans apart. Their resilience wasn't just physical, it was a fire that burned in their very souls, ignited by camaraderie and an unyielding refusal to quit. As they crossed the finish line, battered but victorious, Strack turned to Carter, his pride tempered by a newfound respect. "You are unlike any species I have ever encountered," he admitted. Carter grinned. "Told you this wasn't for the faint of heart." As the group gathered to catch their breath, Drill Sergeant Brooks approached with a clipboard and an unsettling smile. "Not bad, Zalther. But that was just phase 1. Ready for the night run?" Strack's eyes widened. "There's more?" Brooks's grin widened. "Oh, we're just getting started." The night run began under a sky filled with stars, the tranquil beauty above a stark contrast to the battlefield below. Fires raged in the simulated war zone, drones circled ominously, and distant explosions echoed like thunder. General Strack's muscles ached, his pride was bruised, and his once unshakable confidence had been reduced to a fragile thread. Yet, he stood ready. For the first time in his life, he wasn't sure he would survive, but he would try. The Zalthar warriors, now scattered among the human recruits, had undergone an unintentional transformation over the course of the death run. What had begun as disdain for human methods had morphed into reluctant admiration. Watching the humans' resilience up close had forced them to question everything they thought they knew about strength, strategy, and survival. "Stick close, General," Carter whispered, his voice low and steady. "Night runs are a whole different beast." Strack nodded, his sharp senses attuned to the chaos surrounding them. The darkness cloaked their movements, but also hid countless dangers. Humans, however, navigated the field with an eerie precision. Their ability to adapt to the unknown was unparalleled, and it unnerved him. The group pressed forward, dodging traps and using the shadows to their advantage. Strack noted how Carter's hand signals communicated silent orders to the team, their movements synchronized like a single entity. It was a level of cohesion the Zalthar warriors had never achieved, despite centuries of training. Halfway through the course, an unexpected complication arose. A malfunctioning drone began firing live rounds instead of stun blasts, its targeting system corrupted by the chaos. Panic rippled through the recruits as the drone tore through their cover. Carter glanced at Strack. "We can't leave it up there. It'll shred the next team." The general's instincts screamed to retreat, but something in Carter's voice gave him pause. "What do you suggest?" "We take it down," Carter said simply, his tone steady. Strack hesitated. "You're asking me to risk everything for others who may not even survive this course." "That's exactly what I'm asking," Carter said, his gaze unwavering. "Because that's what we do." The general tightened his grip on his weapon. For the first time, he didn't argue. The plan was daring, bordering on suicidal. While the recruits provided cover, Carter and Strack worked together to flank the drone. The general used his strength to haul a collapsed beam into position, creating a makeshift ramp for Carter to launch a surprise attack. The drone detected them at the last second, swiveling its weapon toward Carter. Before it could fire, Strack leapt into action, slamming into the drone with the full force of his armored body. The impact sent sparks flying as the machine crashed to the ground, disabled. Carter stared in shock before breaking into a grin. "Not bad, General." Strack, breathing heavily, managed a small smile. "Perhaps your methods are not entirely without merit." When the last recruit crossed the finish line that night, the Zalthar warriors stood among them, bruised, battered, and profoundly changed. They no longer viewed the humans as reckless or primitive. Instead, they saw them for what they truly were, relentless, adaptable, and unyielding. Brooks approached the group, his usual smirk replaced with a rare expression of approval. "Well, looks like you survived." "Barely." He turned to Strack. "So, what do you think? Still think Deathworlders are overrated?" Strack straightened, his tone respectful. "I came here to judge humanity's strength, and I leave with no doubts. You are a force unlike any the galaxy has ever known." Brooks nodded. "Good answer. Now you know why we're not too worried about your so-called dominion." Back aboard their transport ship, the Zalthar delegation was quiet. General Strack stared out at the Earth, its glowing lights scattered across the dark surface like stars. One of his warriors broke the silence. "What will we tell the Dominion, General?" Strack's voice was steady, yet filled with a weight his warriors had never heard before. "We will tell them the truth. Humanity is not to be underestimated. Their strength lies not just in their bodies, but in their hearts. To challenge them would be to invite annihilation." As the transport ascended into the stars, Strack allowed himself one final thought: perhaps, one day, we can learn from them. Until then, it is best we leave them be. And for the first time in centuries, the Zalthar Dominion chose peace over war. As the humans watched the alien transport disappear, Carter turned to Brooks. "Think they'll come back?" Brooks smirked. "If they're smart, they won't. But if they do, they'd better bring their A game. Because this He gestured toward the smoldering training field. This was just basic training. They haven't seen anything yet. The recruits laughed, their voices ringing out into the night as humanity stood ready for whatever came next.